Okay, excellent. So today is going to just be an attempt to look at as many psukim of Mishley as I'm able to, and try and just sample some of the depth of the psukim. I have to confess I've struggled with Mishley. With Eov and Rus, it was easier to draw themes out and sort of bring out what the whole sefer was about in summary. But with Mishley, it's much harder to do. Either way, I spoke to a couple of people and said as well, just to focus this week on several psukim and try and draw out as much understanding as we can. So I tried to choose some famous psukim and some psukim that I think have great beauty in how the Mefarshim interpret them. So the first pasuk I want to look at is Mishlei Aleph Ches, chapter 1, pasuk 8, very famous pasuk. Shema b'ni Musa Avicha v'al titosh Toras imecha. Listen, my son, to the or hear, my child, to the rebuke of your father or discipline of your father, and do not forsake the instruction of the Torah of your mother. Interesting, because we often think of Torah as coming from the father, and but that's not what the pasuk says. So first of all, just translation is a bit of translation. The Vilna Gaon and Rabbi Zobin and others all comment that the word Shema means lots of different things. Shema can mean listen. Well, let's start from the beginning. It can mean hear. It can mean the most superficial form of hearing. That you hear what someone says. You can hear what someone says without in any way listening to them, or without understanding them, or without obeying them. Shema means listen. It means hear. It also means listen, as in pay attention to. It also means understand. Even now in English, you sometimes say, "Can you hear what I'm saying?" Sometimes it's used. Did you hear my point of view? Sometimes used for understanding, and it's also used in halacha for obeying. For example, in Shema we say, "V'hoyam Shema yatishmu mitzvah." If then you will get reward. It doesn't mean if you hear my mitzvahs. It means if you listen to my mitzvahs, if you're obedient to them. So that's the meaning of Shema b'ni. On a pshat level, and we said that all of Mishley needs to be read on two levels. The whole of Mishley is metaphors. That's the essence of what the book is about. Shlomo Melech says, "I'm going to look at this physical world and use it as a metaphor to understand the spiritual world." So on the physical world, Shlomo says that actually, most often, the father who speaks with a degree of abruptness and discipline is Musa of Icha, and it's the mother who actually gives the teaching, rather than Musa, which is instruction from which a child learns relatively little. Maybe they learn the particular rule in that situation. If you do teachings, then a child develops themselves. So without going into too much detail, this is a broader discussion, but men are often solution-based. There's even some genetic and biological evolutionary biology studies everyone makes of these studies, but nonetheless there are suggestions that this is somehow hardwired into an intrinsic difference, in which men are sort of hardwired to spear the bear that's attacking to find a quick solution, rather than to think about the developmental and family and cave and tribal dynamics at work over there. So again, a human is obviously not just a product of biology. We have minds and decisions, but nonetheless, there's a side of us which is biological, and we men come up with the Mr. Fix-It type personality. A child who is developing and comes home and has something to deal with, the teacher picks on me, my friends bully me, I'm struggling with my homework. Very often, the best solution is not the Musa, which is quick fix. What's the solution? Fix it. I'll speak to your teacher, tell your friend that they shouldn't do this, go and sit down and do your homework. Much better is to help the child. So what do you think your solution is? Maybe actually the teacher's not picking on you. Maybe your friend's not bullying you. Maybe it's two-way. Maybe there's ways of dealing with this. Maybe with the homework or the revision, rather than giving them the quick solution, you can help them consider and reflect. How do you think you can set about doing this? What are the goals you want to set yourself? How might you achieve this? What would motivate you? What is that you enjoy about it? What is you don't? It takes much longer to do, demands a patience, but is a more holistic way of dealing with things. And that's how many of them Farshim understand the pshat in the pasuk.
There's a well-known example, isn't there, in the the four sons, the
yes. I see more people have joined, so I'll just post the link and also put it on the YouTube for those who don't have it. Up Pesachlo, yes. You can't do a Mr. Fix-It and give them an answer because they need to find the questions from within themselves, and the Up Pesachlo, the feminine, yeah. The Mepharshim points out that obviously a developed human needs to develop both sides of themselves, and we all need the Musa approach sometimes and the Torah approach sometimes. Nonetheless, this maybe is the pshat in the pasuk. Rashi and the Vilna Gaon then tell us what the moshel, the nimshal level of this is, and it's very, very interesting. And they say that Ovicha refers to Hashem, and the father refers to Hashem, and Emecha, the mother, refers to the people of Klal Yisrael. And it's interesting that whilst Hashem gives us Musa, Klal Yisrael gives us Torah. And here this reflects the idea that the written Torah is a set of short, brief, barked instructions at us. If you look at the Torah, it's just very brief instructions. Do this, don't do that. Thou shalt do this, thou shalt not do that. And Torah Sheba'al Peh is how Klal Yisrael hears it, how we partner with HaKadosh Baruch Hu in interpreting it and applying it. And that's what Torah Sheba'al Peh is. The Vilna Gaon links in this respect Torah Sheba'al Peh and Rabbanons, because again, it's a similar idea. Whilst the Torah Shebichsav, or the Torah itself, may tell us the abstract ideal, it's the application of Torah as both explained by Chazal and innovated by Chazal when it comes to Rabbanons, mediated through Klal Yisrael, which gives us a Torah that we can actually apply to live our life by. If you only have a written Torah, you may have the principles of Torah, but you don't have an applicable Torah that you can actually, that could be a Torah. Literal meaning the word Torah is teachings. You don't have a Torah through which you can walk. So Torah is filtered through Klal Yisrael, and it's that filtering process which is the maternal Klal Yisrael approach. Incidentally, I'm not going to dwell too much on this point, but based on the Gemara Pesachim, and this is Pasuk by Shulchan Aruch, we also learn from this pasuk the concept of minhag. So Shema b'ni Musa avicha v'al titosh Torah samecha, that whilst Torah and Jewish identity comes from the mother, but Musa and how we apply Torah, if we think what are minhagim, so minhagim are not the Torah itself, but they're constraints and styles put in place within each community. And sometimes they're chumras, for example, that when stringencies that particular communities have adopted upon themselves, even when they're not directly in line with halacha. And this is the idea that minhag follows one's father. Al titosh shema b'ni Musa avicha al titosh Torah samecha. One has to follow minhagim as paskins in Shulchan Aruch. Someone who comes from a Sephardi tradition should keep Sephardi minhagim, and Ashkenazi traditions and should keep Ashkenazi minhagim. Okay, so this is the first pasuk I want to look at. The next pasuk, I did a whole block of pasukim in the source sheet. Mishley is labeled Mishley Aleph Test to Test Zayin, but we're only going to have time to look at the very first pasuk in this block, and maybe in the updated source sheets I'll take out the rest of the pasukim. It says Kilivias Chein Heim L'Reshecha, for they are an adornment of Chein, of grace, for your head. They are graceful wreath, it says in this version over here. V'anokim l'gargosecha, and a necklace for your neck or your throat. Gargosecha is your throat. So here I'll look at the Ibn Ezra in a few minutes, because very, very interesting point he makes, which is of more general value. The roish is the head, that's the seat of intellect, and the neck is the interface between intellect and action. It's the bridge, quite simply biologically, between our brains, which are in our heads, our minds, which are in our heads, and our bodies, which act and do. And it's the interface between the two. The Vilna Gaon and other mystics, other Kabbalists, say that it's not a coincidence. Very interesting thing. When you think about body parts that have multiple roles, is there any connection metaphysically, spiritually, between the multiple roles? Is it coincidence that the ears, for example, both listen and hear and also control balance? Is there a reason for that? And so on and so forth. So is there a reason that the neck both is the interface between the mind and the body and also the source of speech? And I don't know if there's a biological answer to this question. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. But obviously on a functional level, it works like that. But on a spiritual level, a mystical level, the Mukabadim see speech as the interface between thought and action. So if you think about thought as being the most abstract, conceptual, action is the most physical, and speech is somewhere in between the two. It's thought beginning to be concretized and actualized, but not yet entering the realm of Masa, the realm of deed. So it's literally a sort of progression. We've got the head, which is thought, the throat, which is speech, somewhat more there in the real external world. I'm beginning to externalize my ideas. I'm beginning to concretize them. If I have an abstract idea and I need to explain it, I have to now begin narrowing it off and putting it into words. And then I have my actions, which is the realm within which it's actually expressed physically. And the Vilna Gaon makes a number of comments on this. But one thing he says is that the adornment of the head is a single adornment. Livyas chein heim l'reshacha. It's a crown or a wreath of grace on your head. The anokim, but it is neck. The anokim is chains or necklaces. The gargasecha for your throat, which is when things begin moving into speech and action. In other words, the mind, everything is a sort of totality, an interrelated abstract conception. When you actualize things, that's when multiplicity comes in, and you've got many actions or many words which are needed to express them. This is a mystical idea, but it's also a psychological idea. When you have a thought, you often have it in a very holistic way, but as soon as you need to put it down into action or into words, it sort of has to get broken down into its components, and suddenly a multiplicity emerges from it. So this is the Vilna Gaon therefore sees this as this is Torah, and this is the realm of mitzvahs. These are the two components of it: Torah mitzvahs. The Livyas Chenas Reshacha is for Talmud Torah, and the Anokim, the necklaces, are for the realm of mitzvahs. The Mefarshim, this is really the Gemara in Eruvin, Rabbi Shua ben Levi, and others also understand Livyas Chen as being accompaniments of Chen. The word Levaya means to accompany someone. So unfortunately, we know Levayas Hamesis when we accompany a dead person to their grave. But there's also myths of Levaya when you have a guest. There's mitzvah of Levayas Orchim to accompany a guest as they leave the house. So the Gemara in Eruvin translates Livyas Chen to mean that mitzvahs should be accompaniments and Torah should be accompaniments. Livyas Chen means accompany yourself with grace in your head. In other words, as you walk along the way, you should be engrossed in Talmud Torah, and Gargro Secha, your throat should be the Torah should be a necklace for your throat. In other words, you should speak Divrei Torah. You should immerse yourself. Wherever you go, put yourself in a Torah and mitzvah environment. When you build a house, you have to put a roof on the house, says the Gemara. When you put in a door, you have to put in a mezuzah. When you get clothing, you have to think about sharpness. You have to say shechianu. You have to keep the halachas and so on. So immerse yourself in Torah. So again, we've got the same idea. We've got the Moshe and the Nimshal. In other words, Shlomo Melech is saying, on a practical level, it's interesting. We adorn the face and the neck and the hands, which is not the context of this pasuk. And he's saying, think when you see the adornment of the head and the neck, what are you adorning? You're adorning that which is finest about a human being, the head, and the way the human being then interfaces with the world, which is the neck. Make Torah your adornment and your necklace. Yes.
What is the purpose of the noun wreath rather than a crown? If you say the Vilna Gaon's kind of metaphor is for the wreath to be indicating Torah, you'd have thought therefore that a crown would be more appropriate.
Yeah, I don't know the exact etymology of the word levaya. If it doesn't mean accompaniment as per the Gemara in Eruvin. The English here that I just took it off the internet because I was just cut and paste, translates it as a wreath. I think it may mean the same thing. It may mean levaya as an accompaniment, and it means an adornment as in like an attachment. So it's not saying necessarily a crown. Many of us don't wear crowns, but most ladies, unless they're queen, aren't wearing a crown. But nonetheless, they may have a head adornment, like a sort of head, a sort of headband or something like that. So I don't know if the word doesn't quite literally mean an attachment, livyas chein. And then therefore the drush of the Gemara as an accompaniment actually isn't far off the Peshat. A wreath, yeah. I'll change the thing. It's a good point, not a crown, but don't. Okay, fair enough. Okay, so that's those psukim. I'll say that Ibn Ezra outside. I did print it and put it in English because I managed to find English online, so I didn't have to translate it myself. The Ibn Ezra just is a very, very interesting piece, and I just mention it as an aside. The Ibn Ezra is commenting on tefillin. Now, when we read the psukim of, I've often wondered about this actually. When we look at the psukim of V'ahavta es Hashem Elokecha, there's definitely a part of you, part of me anyway, that is inclined to see the psukim as almost metaphorical. These words should be in your heart. You should teach them. Tie them as a sign on your hands, or a totophos, whatever exactly the word totophos means, but let's say some form of crown. So it sounds like you could read the pasuk as almost a metaphor of take these words of Torah, they should be on your hands, they should be an ois, a guidance to your hands. In other words, steer your actions, and totophos being an echo, steer your direction, your vision. That's how you could think of the pasuk. So the Ibn Ezra brings this idea, and he says, actually, how do we know that this isn't what the pasuk means? Maybe it's all a metaphor. And he says that the rule with Divrei Torah is that when it is clearly a metaphor, translated as a metaphor, he brings an example of at the end of the source. He says, "You should circumcise the foreskin of your heart." That's clearly a metaphor. Remove the obstacles and barriers you have to understanding, and where possible, understand the pasuk literally. And then he references this pasuk in Mishley, and he says in Mishley it's perfectly acceptable to understand this when it says that Torah is a adornment on your head. It means a metaphor. It adorns you. It illuminates you. Why is that a legitimate understanding? Because Mishley is called Mishley. That's the whole sefer. His name is Mishlei and is a parable. But Torah is not Mishalim, and therefore Torah needs to be understood on multiple levels. You can learn Torah as a metaphor, so that's what Medrash does, but you also need to learn Torah as a pshat. So in Torah, the pshat of the pasuk is a commandment, an actual physical, tangible commandment. And the drush is the idea behind it. Obviously, tefillin are connected to the idea. When you put on tefillin, what are you meant to reflect upon? Of course, you're meant to reflect that I'm binding my hands and I'm binding my head and my vision. But Torah also has a mikra yotzim pshato, also has a pshat, which is tzivoi, do this. Whereas Mishley is mishalim, and therefore Mishley it's acceptable to learn. I printed the Ibn Ezra in the source sheet in English, so I'm not going to belabor the point, but just an interesting translation. Okay. The next source I want to look at is Mishlei Vov 6:6, a very famous pasuk. It goes on, and I didn't print the continuation of the pasuk. Maybe I should have print continuation. I'll make a note for myself. The pasuk says, "Leich el nomala otzel, O lazy one, go to the ant. Re'ei dracheha v'chachim. Look, see her." It's too small even for myself to see the vowels. V'chachom. See her ways and v'chachom, and be wise. So here the pasuk is saying, look at the ant and learn lazy one and learn wisdom from it. Right? Ants are very diligent. They're hard workers. That we all see that. Look at ants and learn to be industrious. Look at ants and learn not to be lazy. And then the pasuk can carry on that the ants work even though they don't have a ruler. Ants just cooperate somehow in without any system. The Vilna Gaon again translates this as three separate things. He says the first thing is leich el namala atzel, lazy one, go to the namala, and this refers to atzlanus, the middle of laziness. The ants are diligent; they work very, very hard. The second thing it says is re'ei drachah, see their ways. How do they work hard? They work in a good way. So the Gemara is a very, very interesting thing, and I've observed this myself, and it's been scientifically investigated. Gemara says the ants don't engage in theft from each other. Each ant, as it picks up something, puts a scent on it. And we now know ants literally communicate with scent. You often see a path of ants, and they touch as they go past. They sort of bump into each other and go on. And in so doing, they're exchanging a scent which tells them where to go. Literally, the derech, the way of ants. Ants communicate to each other where the food is found through their scent. And if a bit of food is dropped, if the ant goes off, another ant will come and take it. But if the ant is there, another ant won't take it because the ant has touched it with its scent, and therefore they know it's this ant's job to take it. Very, very interesting idea. And then he says, "V'chacham, grow wise." He says because we see tremendous chachma in ants, and again, I happen to have read a book of philosophy which speaks about consciousness and so on, and it used the model of an ant colony and shared a lot of research around it. The incredible wisdom of the ability of ants to cooperate and work independently, and yet it's what they call an emergent wisdom, the wisdom of ants. Each ant itself is not particularly intelligent, and yet out of the wisdom of all the ants, they work in a very, very sophisticated way. They build exceptionally sophisticated nests, and it's very interesting. Us humans, we have emergent intelligence from a multiplicity of cells, each one of which is not particularly intelligent, and yet somehow altogether they work in cooperation. In a sense, you can think of an ant as a diffused brain. Instead of being one cell, it's lots and lots of, instead of it being in one organ, a brain with lots of cells, it's these diffuse cells, and yet they all somehow copy each other and work well. The literal meaning of the pasuk is Leich al namala otzel, lazy one go to the ants, and become wise. So the Vilna Gaon understands it to mean three things: go, see her ways, which is the ways of an ant, and become wise because there's the chachma of the ants in being able to achieve wisdom. A different spin on this is that it says chachem, grow wise from ants, but not as say, don't do as the ant. Because an ant, of course, is a creature that has no bechira, has no free will. It just does. A human being has to choose to do. So we have to learn the wisdom of an ant, but doesn't mean become ant-like. That's for sure that a human should become ant-like. We're not meant to be ant-like, we're meant to learn from ants. Now, there's an amazing Gemara in Eruvin, in which Rabbi Yochanan, probably based on this pasuk and other sources, says, "Ilmole no nitzna Torah," were it not that the Torah was given, "Hayinu lemedim," we would be able to learn. And then he lists a series of things that we can learn from the natural world. We can learn sneus from a chatul, modesty from a cat, gezel min, theft from an ant, as we just already mentioned, aroyus miyona, immorality, lack of faithfulness in relationships from a pigeon, a yona, a dove. A dove is monogamous, stays with its partner, etc. So Rabbi Yochanan seems to be saying that we can learn wisdom from the natural world. Now, again, I don't want to drift too far into philosophy, but I reference this Gemara in my Sunday morning Shiurim, available on YouTube in the philosophy series, when we discuss the relationship between revelation and reason. To what degree, what is their morality external to the Torah? Is there morality external to the Torah? You'll often hear people say, if it's not for the Torah, we wouldn't know anything about morality, but that's not correct. That's not our hashkafa. Hashem had expectations of the Dor HaMabul, the generation of the flood, to behave in a moral way. Had expectations of Mitzrayim. How can strangers come to live in your lands and you enslave them? And as even without Torah, humans are expected to learn basic morality. We now have Torah, which gives a unique spiritual dimension, and whatever exactly Torah gives, precisely gives. Now, Rabbi Yochanan says, were Torah not to have been given, we would learn from the natural world. There is a machlokas which really ends up as quite a divide, a fracture in hashkafic thinking, which is, does this mean that we should still learn from these sources or no? Were Torah not given, we would have to learn from these sources, but now that we've got Torah, we should only learn from Torah. And so it sort of gets into a derech eretz Torah dynamic. What's the relationship between secular wisdom and Torah wisdom? And to what degree is secular wisdom still a source of moral insight? Or maybe not. Maybe now that we have Torah, we can switch off our moral reasoning and we just have Torah as a source. Is Rabbi Yochanan saying, were Torah not given, we would have to use natural morality? But now that Torah is given, we don't have to use natural morality? Or no, they're still meant to work somehow in partnership, a little bit beyond the scope of this shir. But this is the idea that Shlomo HaMelech is saying in this pasuk. The next source we will look at is pasuk is moving quite far forward to Perek Kaf Aleph, pasuk Daled, chapter 21, pasuk 4, again on the handout sheets. Roim einayim urchav leiv, elevated of eyes and broad of hearts. And I've written off the translation I put here in English. I took it online and didn't look at it. near Rishoyim Chatos, the plowing of evil ones is sin. So what does this pasuk mean? One who is elevated of eyes and broad of heart. So I printed Rashi over here, but let's actually look at the Malbim. Look at both Rashi and the Malbim. Rashi says, Roim Einayim, elevated eyes, this is Gas Ruach, this is arrogance. So Rashi learns that the pasuk is talking about arrogance. And the idea behind the pasuk is that arrogance is near Shoyim Chatos, that arrogance is like the plowing of the Metzudas, by the way, explains, I should add that, so the reason why it means arrogance is because arrogant people often sort of roll their eyes and look upwards and look above and so on. So Roim Einayim, someone who is arrogant, is like a plowing of a field. So the Malbim explains that this quality, what does it mean? Why do we plow fields? We plow fields to remove obstacles so that seeds can become implanted in the ground easily and grow into crops. So arrogance is a plowing of a field that allows which sorts of seeds to grow in the ground? Sinful seeds. In other words, arrogance is an enabler, a facilitator for the easy growth of sin. So in and of in itself, arrogance, like many midas, has good qualities and bad qualities to it. So certain sorts of self-assuredness and awareness of one's attributes is not a bad quality. However, arrogance can plow the field and allow chatos, to sin, to grow. So again, Shlomo Melech is calling upon us to look at the physical world and learn lessons from that. Very interesting idea, when you plow a field, reflect on that. If you're walking out in the countryside and you see a field being planted, realize that they're removing obstacles to growth, but now there's a question, what are you planting in the field? And in the case of the Rasha, the arrogance is what allows the obstacles to failure to be removed so that sin can grow. What does this mean? It means that sometimes humbleness is an obstacle to sin. Meaning, if you are tempted to sin, and we are all sometimes tempted to sin, if you have a practice of considering other perspectives, hearing other views, seeking advice and counsel, then you will have obstacles to sinning. Your field won't be plowed. It is easily able to receive seeds of sin. Whereas if you're an arrogant person, you'll remove the obstacles of sin and you'll be able to easily plow the field. That's how Rashi learns this is arrogance. The Malbim translates Roim Einayim as an intellectual arrogance, and Rechav Leiv, wide of heart, as an emotional greed. Wide heart means my heart is broad, which sounds nice, like broad-hearted. What it means is I long and lust for everything. I have a hunger and a thirst that encompasses much. My desires are unbounded, the Malbim says. So Reim Einayim, he says, is Seichel in Yuni, someone who thinks they can understand everything through their own reason and is arrogant in their intellectual and philosophical capacities and ends up dismissive of Torah as a result. And Chav Levov is one who is broad of heart and therefore is greedy, basically. Okay, this is that's pasuk Mishlei Vov. Let us move on to, actually I'm going to go out of order in the source sheets to psukim, the last source on page 2. And this is a Gemara in Shabbos. I didn't print the psukim, I just referenced the Gemara which quotes the psukim. And the Gemara, very, very interesting Gemara, which maybe we could have looked at the beginning of our learning of Mishley. The source of the psukim we're going to look at, by the way, for those who have a Mishley in front of them, you can want to look at it inside, is 26.4 and 26.5, two psukim next to each other. The Gemara, this is at the bottom of page 2, says as follows, Gemara in Shabbos. In fact, again, in the interest of time, I'll just read the Gemara outside. The Gemara says, actually, we'll read the first few lines inside. After for Mishley Bikshu Lignois. So the context of the Gemara is that Chazal were somewhat nervous about some of the books in the canon. Now is not the time to go into the process of the canonization of Tanakh. So Torah is Torah, it was always Torah. But Nevi'im, it seems there were many books of prophecies, authentic prophecies, floating around Klal Yisrael. We have the reference in Melachim to schools of Nevi'im. Chazal say there were more than double the Yotzei Mitzrayim who were Nevi'im, 1.2 million Nevi'im. So there was an era in Jewish history in which there were many, many Nevi'im, which of their prophecies ended up as being Torah for all time, and which ones were just relevant to the particular time period in history. There were various criteria that were used. For example, they have to have a message that's eternal, that's relevant to all the Doros, etc. So not every Nevuah ended up making its way into Nach, and not all wisdom made its way into Ksuvim. So the Gemara discusses various books of Nach that Chazal esteemed because they represented words of Ruach HaKodesh and Nevuah, but nonetheless they had problems with, or thought that they could lead to problems, and therefore weren't sure whether to include them in Nach. Very, very interesting set of Gemaras in Baba Basra and in Shabbos and elsewhere. We're not going to go through this whole idea now, but here the Gemara says, "Af Sefer Mishley," our book, our Sefer that we're learning, Bikshu Lignois. They wanted to hide, show you Devorah Seisim Zeh, because its words appeared to contradict each other. Why do they not hide it away? Omri, they said, Sefer Keheles Lav Einun Vashkrinon Tama, Hachanami La'ayin. Sefer Keheles we also thought was a problematic work till we delved into it. So we should trust Shlomo that if we delve into it, we'll be able to work out an answer. And then Gemara says, what's the steer, what's the contradiction that they were worried about? Very, very interesting. Mishlei 26.5 and Mishlei 24 and 26.5. In 26.4, the pasuk says, Al Tan Kastil Ki'ivaltoi Pen Tishveloi. Do not answer a fool like his folly, lest you become comparable to him. And in pasuk 5 it says, Ane Kasil Ki'ivaltoi. Answer a fool like their folly, lest he is wise in his own eyes. So just to summarize the contradiction the Gemara says, in Pasuk 4, Pasuk Dala, the Pasuk says, don't answer a fool, lest you become like him. And in Pasuk 5 it says, answer a fool lest he's wise in his eyes. So which one is it? So the Gemara gives one answer, and the Mefarshim give a whole series of answers, and I just want to share this because I think actually this pasuk is relevant to all of us. And you find yourself in an argument or offended by someone who is a fool. It can be someone who is rude to you in a shop and pushes in front of you. It can be you're going along the road and an anti-Semite calls out an anti-Semitic comment. It can be a colleague. It can be a child who's a teenager and losing their temper and acting irrationally. When do you answer them? When don't you? So the Gemara answers the question, the contradiction, by saying it depends whether it matters or not. If this is in Divrei Torah, in spiritual matters, matters of morality and spirituality, answer the fool, because you have to respond. You can't leave the matter lying. If this is in material matters, so you know what, have their way, like, what do you care? Don't make a fuss about it. You don't need to answer, you don't need to respond to them. That's how the Gemara answers the steer, the contradiction. But let's spend a little bit of time looking at each pasuk by itself, and we'll see other answers that come out from it. And I think this the whole of Mishlei is worth us knowing, but maybe this pasuk should ring in our ears because it maybe gives us practical guidance or something to think about every time we want to engage in conversation. So the first pasuk says, "Answer not a fool according to their folly." Pen yishvelo, yes, you become like him. I printed that in the English of the Gemara. Why do you become like someone when you argue with them? Why do you become like someone when you argue with them? Sorry?
They get angry.
Yeah, you get influenced by their anger, or even you get influenced by their ideas. In order to argue with someone effectively, you have to sort of put yourself a bit into their mindset, so you get affected a little bit by their views. That's one reading the Gemara. Another explanation is because you have to listen to them to argue, and listening can make you damaged. Another explanation of the Gemara is to the onlooker, to the observer, you become tarred. If you speak with a fool, you sometimes you sort of almost equate to them. It looks like you're taking their viewpoint seriously. You're giving them a certain prestige in respect in what they're saying by even engaging in them. So this may be what the pasuk means. Don't engage with them, pen yishvelo, lest you become somewhat comparable to them by so doing. Alternatively, don't engage with a fool, pen yishvelo, lest you become compared to them. Then the onlooker can't tell the difference between your arguments. So don't argue with someone if you're not going to win the argument. That may be what the pasuk is saying. Particularly if you've got arms tied behind your back, if you've only got sounds of bites with which to argue. There are arguments where people simply don't have the time, they're not willing to invest the time or the effort into thinking seriously about this issue, and they expect you to win the argument on a headline, and you can't. So again, don't engage in an argument where you may lose, or where you may be indicating that you are struggling with the same issues, or you become foolish in your own right by so doing. Rashi, therefore, basically answers the pasuk, the steer and the psukim, by saying that the psukim, I don't actually know how Rashi would explain why the Gemara was so bothered by this contradiction. Rashi says the psukim tell us the answer to the contradiction. Don't argue with a fool if it's a situation where you will become like the fool, where you might lose the argument, or you might get tarred by the same brush, or you may come off looking foolish, or you may be influenced by it. And do argue with the fool where the fool is arrogant and claims to think they're clever, and you can demonstrate to them that they're not as clever as they think. So very interesting. Rashi says all Shlomo Melech is saying is, before you argue with a fool, think: is this a situation of MISHLEI that I'll become like them, or is this a situation of that the fool will say, I'm wise and therefore I'm going to he's going to be wise in their eyes. There's an amazing Malbim who translates the pasuk as follows. He says, don't argue with a fool. Altan kasil k'bivalto. Don't argue with a fool about his foolishness. Pentishvelo, when your fear is that you'll be equated to him. In other words, don't argue with a fool where all you're trying to do is prove your own cleverness. But do argue with a fool in order to demonstrate to the fool that they're not so clever. Very interesting translation of the pasuk. So he says, it's not don't argue with a fool lest you become similar to him, but don't argue with a fool where what's motivating you is that people will think you're like him. So don't argue with someone where it's just about proving your own their own cleverness. Okay, and there's a beautiful of Hirsch also. He says, don't answer al-tam kasil ki'valto. Don't answer the fool like his foolishness, pentishveloi, lest you become comparable to him, but answer him, in other words, don't give the fool a intelligent answer, which makes it sound like he's raising a deep point, but answer him with a sound bite, in a way that undercuts superficially what they're saying. The Gemara brings on several occasions when the Amoraim or Tanoim were challenged, that they were doicha the questioner b'kash. They pushed away the questioner with straw, meaning in Gemara we always take seriously the words of an Amora or Tana, and if they answer a question in a certain way, we'll take it seriously, unless the questioner is a troublemaker. And in that case, the Gemara understands it's legitimate to push someone away with straw, in others to answer someone in a way that isn't the full depth of an answer, but is enough to satisfy and demonstrate to everyone the foolishness of the questioner. There's a very, very clear demonstration of this in the famous debate between the Ramban and the apostate. So sadly, in Christian Europe, Jews were sometimes forced to debate Christians about their belief in their Messiah and the like. And we have records of one particular famous debate, which was the Ramban Nachmanides when he was forced to debate. We have records from the Ramban and we have records from the Christian side. So it's a very, very well documented debate, and we can see the parallel between the two. And there are times where the Ramban is clearly doiche bekaf. He's clearly answering the apostate in a partial or half answer in order simply to push them off in the quickest way. There's beautiful examples where you really see the genius of the Ramban's mind at work. So, for example, there's an occasion where the Ramban is asked a question by the apostate based on the writings of the Rambam. And he turns to the apostate and says, where does the Rambam say this? And the apostate gives him the wrong record. And the Rambam says, I don't think the Rambam says this. Bring a safe and let's have a look. And there's nowhere in the Maimonides and the Rambam where he says this quote. So again, just so it's clear, because I'm talking about Ramban and Rambam, so I'll talk Nachmanides and Maimonides, just make it clear. Nachmanides is in the debate. The apostate says to the Nachmanides, you're a great thinker. The Maimonides himself proves my point. And Nachmanides says, where does Maimonides prove the point? And he gives him the source. Nachmanides says, Maimonides doesn't say that anywhere. Let's bring the safe in. He doesn't say it anywhere. Now, Nachmanides was an expert in the writing of Maimonides, and Maimonides does say this idea elsewhere, but the Nachmanides realized that the apostate had got the reference wrong, and therefore just pushed him off in a cheap way and said, where does Maimonides say this? You haven't found it, to show it to me, because he understood that he had the reference wrong. So you see this concept of don't answer the fool in a deep way, but just push them off in the swiftest manner possible. That's how Rav Hirsch takes the pasuk. Yes.
Again, in the four sons, we've got the exact thing with the different answers to the Kochom.
Yes.
You take it seriously.
Yeah.
It's the proper question. And the Russia, you hack it,
Yeah.
you don't answer it.
Okay, shalom. You know what? You're making me think. For those online, David is again in the same way as Shema bin Musa Vichal to she's up Sachloi. You're saying in the four sons, the Russia, Hakesh Shinov, just push them off. You make me think. Mishlei has a lot of ideas around education. Maybe the Haggadah is modeling itself on these messages about how to speak how to speak. Very, very interesting. You're right. Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, okay, we'll see where this goes. Okay, the next pasuk is staggeringly beautiful, and I just want to spend some time on it. This is it's not for me to talk about wonderful pasukim, all pasukim are wonderful, and we were not meant to judge between one pasuk and another. But listen to the next pasuk. We're now going back to page 1. I went out of order over here. This is the penultimate source on page 1. K'mayim haponim laponim. This is from 27:19. As waters, as a face to face in water, kamayim ponim el ponim, kain leif pa'odom la'odom. So is, in fact, the English here isn't good. So is a man's heart to a man. So what else does this pasuk mean? As waters reflect a face, so too is a man's heart to a man. So the simplest understanding of this pasuk is that, again, Shlomo is using a metaphor of like waters reflect my face, so too humans reflect each other. What does that mean? Either we reflect each other. How I feel about someone often reflects how they feel about me. If I warm to someone, it's often because they're warming to me. And so on a subconscious level, we're sort of mirroring and reflecting each other. Or it's referring to the causative thing. If you want someone to relate to you, engender in your own heart feelings of warmth and love to them, and that will trigger a response to them. So if there's someone who doesn't like you, try and empathize with them, try and see the good in them, and that will allow them to see back into you. That's what the pasuk is saying. There's a more negative reading of this pasuk, which the Meiri brings, that says it's a cynical view about human relationships. What happens when you're looking at your reflection in the mirror, in the water? The reflection looks back at you. What happens as soon as you turn your back? Your reflection turns your back on you. So he says this is how human beings behave. This is Shlomo HaMelech here saying, "K'mayim ponim ponim." You're looking at someone and you think they're oh, I like you so much. I'm there for you. I'm by your side. As soon as you turn your back, they also turn your back on you, and they're not there. They're not there for you, and they're not really loyal to you. They're not there by your side. Very, very cynical reading of the pasuk. The Meiri, though, says one more reading in the pasuk, and he translates this, and this is why I said my English translation wasn't so good. On the English I printed here, it says, as a face is to a face in water, so is one man's heart to another. The correct translation is, so is a man's heart to a man. And the Meiri says this is talking about the same person. It's in the same way as waters reflect your face, so too your heart reflects you. In other words, don't blame other people and don't blame circumstances for the choices you make. Realize you're in control. It reflects who you are and what you are, how your heart operates, and the decisions and desires that you have. So it's like someone blaming their reflection. If you're standing by a river and you grab someone's purse or you hit someone, don't say, yeah, but he did it, and point at your reflection. That's you. So too, don't blame others for what you're doing. Know that how you're behaving is a reflection of yourself. Finally, the Alshich says that if you are peer influenced, if you're influenced by other people's desires, that's like your reflection in the river. Imagine you go to a river and you smile into the river and you see someone smiling back at you and you say, "Oh, my friend," and you give it as a hug. What happens to you? You fall into the river and best get muddy and at worst, God forbid, get drowned. So he says, if you see the false heart of other people towards them, carefully you don't fall into it. Sometimes it's a trap. Okay, so several meanings in K'mayim Panim al Panim. Again, we're learning Mishlei because Shlomo Melech is trying to give us a meditative experience. When you see a plowed field, think about what are the obstacles and what seeds you're planting. When you see a mirror, we all look at mirrors, right? You brush your teeth in the morning and you see a mirror, think about this pasuk. K'mayim Panim al Panim. Give yourself a smile in the mirror and say hello, and then think about friendships. Am I smiling at other people and engendering friendship in them? Am I smiling at other people in a facile and fake way? Are people's smiles to me as fake as the mirror's smile to me? Am I blaming others and blaming my reflection for my own behavior? Have that meditative experience. There's a wonderful, wonderful human being called Rabbi Zobin, who I've quoted before actually from the pulpit. He wrote a book called Gateway to Happiness. He is a Rav, and he taught for many years in Eish Torah in Yerushalayim. And he has beautiful, beautiful book it's like a self-help book. It's not a profound book. It's more like sort of pop psychology, but it's like a self-help book around exercises to do to achieve happiness in a very, very important, real way. I once did something terrible to him. Maybe I shouldn't be recorded saying this. And this was in my younger years when I was. I met his son once, and please, no one should ever do this to me. And I said to his son, like, well, what's your dad really like at home? You know, he speaks a lot about happiness. Well, you know, what's life at home like? And he told me he never saw his father angry. An amazing thing. He never saw his father angry. David Briskin, really someone who worked on many mitzvahs. He's got very beautiful Mussar books, including Gateway to Happiness. So he told me once that, now this is very American. I know us inhibited English people can't do this, but nonetheless, it's worthwhile. He says every time he passes a mirror, he gives himself a wave, and he says, "Zayleg, you're doing great." Now, we would find that very, very difficult. We're English, but there's an idea behind this. Look yourself in the mirror and give yourself a smile. K'mayim Panim al Panim, and then think about this pasuk in Mishley. K'mayim Panim al Panim, Kain leiva Adam la Adam. Okay, so these are sequence psukim. I want to conclude with the time available in perhaps the most famous psukim of Mishley, which is Eishes Chayil, which I printed at the end of page 1. And I printed various sources, which I think we probably won't have time to go through inside, but I'll try and do them outside around this. So Eishes Chayil is, I'll just say very briefly, another example of Mishley at work, of Moshel and parables at work. It's ostensibly a song about women, the woman of valor, and it means that. It's referring to amazing women, 100%, but it's also a song about wisdom and chokhmah. And Shlomo Melech is using an analogy of chokhmah as a wise woman, as a symbol of wisdom. And when you look at it in psukim, when you look at it in context, it's clear that that's also what's going on. This is not some sort of midrashic drush. This is pshutay shel mikra, the pshat of the pasuk. This is also referring to wisdom. By the way, the metaphor of wisdom as a lady was endemic throughout the ancient Near East. And we know this, for example, from the Greek tradition, Sophia, and so on. So Shlomo Melech, and this is chokhmah Shlomo. This is not a nevuah dictated by Hashem word for word. This is Shlomo expressing himself, the Ruach HaKodesh, the nevuah that he has, but in his own language, in his own way, and so on. So he's using what's a well-known metaphor in his, perhaps in his world. And it's referring on both levels to both levels of interpretation. So again, I won't go through the sources inside, but I've printed here from Medrash and Chumah, Yalkut Shimoni, and so on. Let's just look at the first psukim of Eishes Chayil and just do what we have time to do. Pasuk Yud, Pasuk 10. This is the very closing words of Mishley. Eishes Chayil miyimtza, who will find a woman of valor, v'rochik mipnina michra, and her price is far beyond pearls. So I just wanted to share with you some of the beauty both of the translation and the Hebrew language over here. So I'm not going to go into this in too much depth, but the translation of the word chayil either might mean enthusiastic, energetic. It might refer to strength, like a soldier is a chayal, is a soldier. In other words, she's strong in what she does. But either way, a woman who's strong and a wisdom that has a strength and a valor to it. Eishes Chayil miyimtza v'rochik mipninim michra. So the Medrash comments on this, that a pnin is a pearl. Have you ever thought about the etymology of the word pnina? So what's the word pnin? Pnim, inside, inserted. So a pearl is called a pearl because it's inserted in the oyster, in the shell of the oyster. The Medrash says that Eishes Chayil miyimtza refers to the Torah, who can find a partner of valor. Now, as we human beings need to find partners to navigate our lives, to live our lives, the partnership we should make should be with Chokhmah, with wisdom, and with Torah. And then it says, just if you look at the top of page 2, Zuhi Torah, this is Torah. Its value is far beyond pearls. This refers to Moshe, who went pnimim, he went pninim, inwardness, multiplicity of inwardness. And he found this inward Torah. So Torah is this deeply buried treasure, and he found this pearl within it. The metaphor, by the way, of rochik pninim michra, the literal meaning of rochik means far. And of course, the Mefarshim point out that in order to get pearls, you have to go far, you have to go to great depth. So we're again getting pnim as meaning deep. It's not just deeply buried inside the oyster shell, but it's also deeply buried in the ocean floor. To this day, divers have to dive deep in order to get the wisdom. Okay, what's the point that Shlomo's making over here? That to get wisdom of Torah, you have to dive deep. You have to dig deep. You have to invest much effort and energy and thought and time, and in order to find the buried spiritual truths and the buried virtues. This is really Eon. This is the concept of Eon HaTorah, that we have to learn Torah in depth in order to be able to find Torah. Torah doesn't come easy. Later, we're going to learn about Bekios, the breadth of Torah. Torah needs Eon, which is deep thought, and it needs Bekiot, which is a large range of knowledge. And here it's saying that if we want to find the panemius of Torah, what is the panemius of Torah? The concepts of Torah, the secrets of Torah, the mystical secrets of Torah, Kabbalah, the lamdas of Torah, the halachic conceptualization. This is referred to as panemiot. So that's the panina. These are the vowels that are these are the pearls that are to be found buried within Torah, that are found at great effort. There's also the idea that the pearls are found through difficulty. What leads the pearl to build up? It builds up around a contaminant that enters into the shell of the pearl. The oyster is a very vulnerable creature. It's just basically flesh. If a little grain of sand goes into the oyster, it really builds up the pearl, as a way of protecting from the contaminant. And then this is the penina. When it says rochik minin mecha, it's saying that Eishes Chayil is more valuable than pearls. Why is it more valuable than pearls? Because when you sell a pearl, you have the money, but you don't have the pearl. When you sell Torah, you still have the pearl. You spread Torah without having to give it away. And we'll see that in the next pasuk. Just briefly, if we go on to the next pasuk, Batach ba leiv bala v'sholol lo yachsa. Which again, the Medrash, I don't think I printed the Medrash over here, but without going into detail in the pasuk, her husband has trust in her, as we can trust the Torah, and the sholol lo yachsa lacks no spoil, lacks no loot, no spoil. In other words, again, the same idea that normally in life it's a zero-sum game. If you get more, I get less. Whereas with Torah, sholol lo yachsa, nothing is lacking. In other words, if someone else's Torah, it only increases my own Torah, it doesn't decrease my Torah. I'll just mention here, because this is one of my favorite Gemaras, the Medrash then says Eishes Chayil, because a moshel of who's an Eishes Chayil. I printed the Medrash, so I'm not going to take you through the whole story, but the Medrash tells the story of Bruria, the wife of Rabbi Meir, whose two sons tragically died on Shabbos. And Rabbi Meir came home Shabbos morning from shul, and he said, "Where are the sons?" And she said, "They've gone out to fence, they're out learning." And he comes home in the afternoon, and he says, "Where are the sons?" And she says, they're not around. She doesn't want to give him the bad news on Shabbos. Then on Motzi Shabbos, he comes home and he says, "Should I wait for the boys for Havdalah?" And she says, "No, they're out learning, or they've got sleepover, whatever it is." And then she serves him another Melka. And now, after Shabbos has left, she says to him, "I want to ask you a moral question." And one of the reasons I mention this is because it ties us back into Eov. And she says, if a friend lends to you a gift to use for a time, and then they ask for the gift back, can you have complaints? So, a good friend of mine lends me his car, so I've got a car for a few months, and then the friend says, "Sorry, I want the car back," and I have complaints. And Rabbi Meir says, "No." And then she tells him, "We were given the precious gifts of these two sons, and now Hashem has taken them back." And Rabbi Meir responds, again quoting the pasuk, Hashem losan, Hashem lokach, Yishem Hashem averach. Hashem is given, Hashem is taken, and may the name of Hashem be blessed. And when we discussed Eov, we shared the thoughts on the Moan of Uchim, which really is based on this Gemara, that one of the answers to Tzaddik Viraloi, the suffering of the innocent, of the righteous, is actually, what does suffering mean? Hashem gives us an undeserved gift. If I choose to give you a gift of £100 a day, and I choose to give you a gift of £30 a day, and I choose to give you a gift of £1 a day, you can't have complaints against me that I'm giving you 100, you 30, and you 1. It's all a gift. It's all undeserved. And if one day I stop giving you the £30 and you wake up and there hasn't been the transfer of money, do you have a right to complain about that? So again, I'm not trying to simplify the great depth and problems of Tzaddik Rala or claim this answers every single case of suffering, but the idea that Bruri is expressing, and the Gemara holds this up as the example of Eishes Chayil. I just want to mention, I think we've got time just very briefly for one more or two more psukim very briefly. We're jumping to pasuk 14. She was like a merchant ship, who brings her bread from afar. I'm not going to go into detail in this pasuk because we are slowly running out of time. But basically, the Mefarshim understand this in two ways. Either that one who invests in Torah and mitzvahs, even though they may think that they lose livelihood as a result, nonetheless, lechem, bread will arrive. So someone who doesn't work on Shabbos, that may hold their business back. Someone who dedicates time to Talmud Torah may have less time to work. Obviously, we all have to make our Shabbos and engage in an appropriate way, but nonetheless, the price of mitzvahs and the cost of halachic living and maybe moral temptation that we sometimes face. So you may think that by keeping Torah, you lose. And there's a whole school of thought, Rashi and so on, understands that the Torah and mitzvahs bring with them parnasa as a result. The Gemara understands this metaphorically to be referring to Talmud Torah, that Talmud Torah is mimerchok tovi lachma. The lechem, the bread of Torah, is brought from afar. And the Yerushalmi in Rosh Hashanah says that divrei Torah are niyim b'makom echad and are shiurim b'makom acher, are poor in one place and rich in another place. And I just want to spend a couple of minutes talking about this. Anyone who engages in Talmud Torah seriously notices that classic sources are not written in line with modern style of learning. So nowadays, if I want to learn about Shabbos, I expect to open a book, and in that book find all the halachos of Shabbos in the chapters heading Shabbos. And when I want to learn about Sukkot, I turn to the book volume that deals with Sukkot, and it answers to tell me everything about Sukkot. When you learn Gemara, it's not like that. The words of Gemara are rich in one place and poor in another place. In other words, if I want to know Masechah Shabbos, I can't just learn Shabbos, because in the middle of Shabbos, the Gemara may bring an example from halachas in Sukkah, and then may bring an example from halachas about Karbonos. And if I want to know everything about Shabbos, I also have to learn Maseches Eruvin, and I have to learn Sukkah. And maybe somewhere in the middle of Kodshim is buried a detail about the halachas of Shabbos. So I can't know everything about Karbonos unless I learn everything about Shabbos, and I can't know everything about Shabbos unless I learn everything about Karbonos. Torah is all, you have to be merchot tovid lachma. You can only know Torah by bringing sources from all over the place. Indeed, by the way, one of the endeavors of later figures like the Rambam was to try and resolve this problem and sort things out. But why was Torah initially written like that? And what is lost by the more structured style of the Rambam? And the answer is you lose this merchot tovid lachma. You lose something exotic. Real life isn't systematic. Real life is organic. Do you really think you can understand everything about Shabbos if you don't know about Karbonos, and you don't know about Sukkot, and you don't know about Shofar, and you don't know? If it's one spiritual framework, you have to know all of that. You can't be a posek in halacha if you've learned Hilchos Shabbos well and you haven't learned anything else. And sometimes you find people who are one-trick ponies. They voice views about Judaism or Hashkafa because they've learned like one topic and researched it very well. And they say, this topic I've researched very well. But that's not who we rely on to give us halacha. We rely on the post-Gei Hador, who have learnt many areas of Torah, the bulk of Torah, in order to paskin, because the danger of the systematic pathway of the Shulchan Aruch, of the Rambam, the categorizers, is you learn the section on Shabbos and now you think you know everything about Shabbos. Now the Rambam succeeded in his aim. He's gathered everything in Shabbos in that section, but you still can't understand conceptually Torah as a whole unless you've learned the other sections of Torah also. The Ashkenazi world resisted the categorization that took place in the Sephardi world for generations. The Marshal wrote against the Shulchan Aruch even and said, people will use this as a shortcut to learning Torah, and that because it's so beautifully systematically arranged, you'll end up not understanding the words of Torah. And this is linked by the Yerushalmi to this pasuk of Mimerchok Tovi Lachma. And I think we'll have to leave pasuk Tesvav to another time since we've gone over our allocated time. I'll just say very briefly, okay? I should have finished off the pasuk. I'll just mention 2 points very, very briefly on this, and then we'll conclude. She gets up at night. Chazal speak about the importance of learning Talmud Torah at night. Again, I didn't print the source here, but in the interest of time, I'm not going to go through the source. But Chazal say that day is the time of doing. We're always busy in the day. There's activity. Night is the time of being, when we sort of switch off and we can sort of immerse in ourselves. Night is family time. It's time of connection, time of relationships and relations. Night is the time of being. That's the separate type of Torah to daytime learning. That's b'shach k'mecha, why you need Talmud Torah in the day and Talmud Torah in the night. If you do Talmud Torah in the day, that infuses how you do. But if you do Talmud Torah at night, that molds the quality of the person that you become, the Torah that you do at night. I did print it. I printed it in the box above the source sheet and bottom MISHLEI. You can have a look at that. I printed English. The final point I'll make is Vatitin teref levesa. She gives teref. Teref is like the word treifa. What does the word treifa mean? That which is grabbed, clawed at. So food which is clawed at, she gives to her household. Chok is like carefully allocated. She gives to her lasses, to her maidens, her maidservants. Here it's saying that Talmud Torah gives one portions in vast quantities. But who are the handmaidens of Talmud Torah in the language of the Ibn Ezra in Yesod Lamora? The Ibn Ezra, a very famous quote from the Ibn Ezra, that the Chochmas Chitzonius, the outside wisdom, science and philosophy and music and art, are the handmaidens of Torah. What does it mean it's the handmaidens of Torah? We need them to serve Torah. You can't understand Torah in depth unless you also understand science and philosophy and maths and music. But they are the handmaidens of Torah. They in and of in themselves, they don't make you a moral person. You can have a PhD and still be a rotter. Wisdom, philosophy, science are implements to widen ourselves and to learn Torah better and to make ourselves more spiritual. But they're not in and of in themselves direct guarantees of becoming a spiritual and moral person. The famous line of the Ibn Ezra that may be taken from this pasuk over here, that the other chochmas, the chochmas should be viewed as the handmaidens of Torah. Teref, that which you grab and eagerly take hold of, that's for base, so that's for what comes home, that's for what molds the home. Choik, allocating, is for the handmaidens of Torah. And with this, we will conclude a sample of Psukim in Mishley. I did call the series "MISHLEI SELECTIONS," sample of wisdom Harald Hashem, because I realized even in advance it would be too big for me to bite off all of it. But over the series, I realized even that little aim was too much and too ambitious. But I hope this has given you a little taste of some of Shlomo. And I wish all of you a wonderful evening. Thank you so much for honoring me.